Should I start?
Haribo, Sridham Prabhu, Anandam Pranam. So here we are. How did you become a devotee in approximately 10 minutes? Or as long as you
You
want.
have to tell everything, including.
Yeah, you can go on for an hour, but we just have to plug the 10 minutes because that's the name of our series. So
Yeah, I don't want to make it too long. I won't go through all of it, but
Can I ask you a
like
question?
to basically sum up like what made me go to Krishna consciousness and what attracted me to it. About a year and a half ago is when I started having realizations. I grew up in a family of meat eaters. You know, when I was 12 years old, I was taught how to like butcher chickens and skin a deer. Like, you know, it was just kind of it's how we grew up in central New York. That everybody was hunting, and about a year and a half ago, I was working at a steakhouse in Ohio, and I actually, I grew up mainly chickens. We'd have meat chickens, but there is accident that happened at the steakhouse I worked at. This lady, this really sweet lady I knew, she was carrying a jar of green olives out of the storage room when I was right in front of her doing dishes, and she slipped and fell and broke the glass, and it cut her throat open. And I turned around, and I was the first one to see her and to get help, and it just like I couldn't help but think of how it looked exactly like what chickens look like when you butcher them. It was really gruesome, and it was really bloody, and
Did
it
she
was a
die?
big shock.
Did
And
she die?
no, she amazingly she survived.
that's
She was in
crazy.
the hospital
Like the
for a
glass
long time.
jar hit the ground, she hit the ground, and then
Yeah.
it smacked.
Yeah, the
throat.
glass jar broke up, and you know when she fell on the ground, a big shard of glass came up and cut her throat open. Like literally, like where you would cut a chicken's throat. It was really disturbing. And after that, after seeing that, it kind of made me start to realize, like between like a human and a chicken, I mean, they're both living things, and they both have lives, and it just kind of, I guess it gave me more compassion for the chicken. Seeing something like that, it could be a human. And so that kind of got me away from eating meat. I didn't eat meat after that. I actually ended up quitting my job at that steakhouse because I didn't even want to be around it anymore. They wanted me to start cooking, and I didn't want to do it, so I quit the job. And I had other realizations. I don't want to get into them, but they kind of like all summed up to God realizations. So
That's cool. I mean,
About-
if you're open and getting into it a little bit, it would be cool.
yeah. Another one was I guess I was planning. I didn't really have like anywhere to go or anything to do. I was kind of just stuck in Ohio, and I wasn't really making enough money. I was just making enough to pay rent, really, like not really much for food. At that point, I was basically living off of like rice and beans and lentils, and then I was picking a lot of food on my way to work because I was riding a bicycle to work. I ended up working at a factory, a KitchenAid factory.
You left home, or you were already like independent?
I was independent at this point. I was independent for the time being. Even at the steakhouse, I was independent. I was independent 2 years ago. I became independent. A year and a half ago is when these things started happening.
All right, so you were in Ohio?
Yeah, I was in Ohio, and I was working a job at the factory, and I was barely making enough money. So I kind of like, I didn't really, I felt like I was just kind of stuck in a position where I just wasn't happy, working every day and just enough to pay rent and things. So I wanted to travel, and I didn't have any money to travel. So I had this crazy idea. Actually, a friend of mine, she gave me this book called The Alchemist, and
Cool.
told me I was the kid in the story, is what she told me.
So that's awesome.
But
Okay, cool.
it's basically about a boy who travels, and it made me want to travel even more. So I decided I'd just take my bicycle, and I was gonna head west from Ohio towards California at the beginning of the summer. And like within a week of making this decision, I started saving up my money, and I was thinking in about a month I'd leave. But within that 1 week, I met somebody from Maine who actually their car broke down in the town I was in, and they had a bike, and they had a tent, and they had a med kit, and like basically everything I needed for traveling, and they gave it all to me. after having a conversation with them for a while, I got to know them. I told him my position. He was telling me that he was traveling. And he said, this is why my car broke down, because I had to meet you so I could give you these things. So I was ready to go at that point, but I was stuck on whether or not I'd actually go. And then my bike was stolen, so I saw it as a sign, like, you know what, like maybe I'm not ready. So I went back to New York, and I got another job as a diesel mechanic, and I started falling back into living the way I was before, starting to accept that maybe there wasn't really anything else.
But not eating meat or...
Like eating meat, and I never really was a person to go to the bar, but before then I did other things and that weren't legal, and this job, I got drug tested, so it kept me away from bad things like that, but I was still, going to the bar because that's accepted in the U.S.
Yeah.
and smoking cigarettes. But I was, working 5-6 days a week, every day, all week, and making money. I had a car, and I had the things that I wanted before. I had a nice car, and I had health insurance and dental, and I had a 401k and a great job, but it still didn't seem like happiness, and I still felt like there was something more, and I was missing out, and it just kind of brought me into a depression. So, going to the bar every night, and then someone from a long time ago I knew from middle school and halfway through high school I came in contact with, and she was living in New Barrage, the temple in California, and she was telling me about...
Who were they?
Manmohini Dasi.
Okay, cool. So your connection to Devotee was through her?
Yeah, my connection was with her. We started talking, and I was telling her about the things I went through the past year, and
how did you know her? Because she was already Devotee.
So
you had heard about Hare Krishnas before?
No, I never.
Were you interested in spiritual philosophies and things like that, or?
Not really. The most spirituality I ever really experienced was, going to church, which also, Christianity, a Methodist church is all I really ever experienced as far as my spirituality has ever gone. But that's also another thing. When I came back to New York from Ohio, I didn't have anything else to do. I didn't know what to do, so I was going to a church because I felt I had to do something for God. But one day a week didn't seem like enough.
You always, from the time you were a kid, you would say you had some faith in God? Or not faith necessarily, but belief that he existed?
It was kind of
culturally, okay, I'll go to the church and,
my father was never really a churchgoer. It was more of the rest of our family. My dad believed in God. He was a Christian, but he never really he never took me or my sister to church. So it was kind of like a thing that was in the back of our head, but never really thought of it. And then when I was ever asked about God, it was either, for a while I was an atheist. For a while I believed, it's possible that there is a God, but it's not really something I was concerned about.
Okay, so then you met at some point a devotee, Manmohini.
Yeah, Manmohini. I ended up talking to her again. She became a devotee about 4 or 5 years ago. So that was the time actually that she stopped going to school where I was going to.
Okay, so you grew up.
I grew up with her before she was a devotee.
That's interesting because I think it's very interesting to find out how people, in how you became a devotee. It's very important, your connection. So it's. A lot of times it's through you seeking specifically that, or through knowing someone who's a devotee, and then they can kind of help you in that direction. So,
yeah.
So you knew her from when she wasn't a devotee?
Yeah, I knew her before she was a devotee. And it's funny because I always, she was always a good friend of mine in school. And it was just interesting because she was telling me about this culture, this community, these people, these devotees.
About Badger particularly?
About Badger, about Krishna consciousness in general, just about Krishna. And it interested me because my biggest desire was to find a way to serve God every day and have him be a part of my life every day. But that's not really something you get in a Christian or even a Mormon church. It's something that you do once every Sunday in the morning. And it didn't seem like enough. I wanted something I could. Yeah, I wanted a daily practice, exactly. So, she sent me books and like The Way of Love, Beyond Liberation, Beyond Birth and Death, and I was reading these books and I found great interest in them, and I decided that I wanted to go to California, so she offered to have me go there, and she asked the owner of New Braj if I could go there and stay, and she also asked me if I wanted to go to India. So I saved up some money from the job I was working at in New York, and I bought a ticket. I sent her the money to buy a ticket for India from California, and then I saved up a little bit more money, and I sold my car and got a ticket to go to California. And I was at New Braj for about a month. August 23rd, I left New York, and I went to New Braj, and then October 1st, about 1 month later, I went to India, and then I came back December 12th, I came back from India, and here I am back in California.
Awesome. So once you actually moved to New Braj, then you kind of started wearing tilak and getting neck beads and chanting.
Yeah, New Braj was really amazing. It was the best experience ever. I got to fully engage in worshiping God, worshiping Krishna, learning how to put tilak on, learning the mantra, learning about kirtan, about bhajans, learning just about everything, pastimes, all these things about the Creator, about Krishna, and it's just, I wouldn't want to live any other way. It's the only way that really feels like happiness. I wouldn't want to go back to.
You felt like a major difference in your life from before and after.
Yeah.
And just a sense of purpose and feeling meaning and just happiness.
Yeah, it's definitely, it gives more meaning to my life, because just doing a job as, like I was a diesel mechanic, being a diesel mechanic for my own benefit it's not fulfilling. But if say now that I know of Krishna consciousness, I know how to serve God, I could go back and do that job, but I could do it for Him. I could do it for devotees.
Yes.
And in that case, it would be way more fulfilling. So,
how'd you like it in India?
India was very amazing. It depends if you look at it from a material or spiritual aspect. Both ways, I think, is very good because it's a cultural shock in both ways, and it's a good cultural shock though. It's a good experience. The people in India are so nice. They're so helpful. I ended up taking a metro back to New Delhi from Vrindavan. And even people there, not even being in Vrindavan, people were so nice and helpful. They wanted to help you get to your destination. One thing I'd advise going to Vrindavan is to bring a little bit of money at least, because I went with absolutely none.
So you stayed where did you stay in Vrindavan?
Radha Kunj, under Premananda Prabhuji. It's a very, very great mat. I really liked it there. It's the only reason I was able to have a roof over my head that I can think of.
That's pretty cool. Like most tourists think of going to India with a lot of money to spend on, whatever they want to enjoy or whatever they want to do, traveling or whatever. But you went with basically nothing and found shelter, yeah?
Yeah, I went with nothing. I just kind of, I prayed and I hoped, that Krishna would take care of me. And I think that's something that would be good for anyone to do, is if you put full faith in Krishna, He'll make things work.
Wow,
that's
beautiful. Thank you so much. That was very beautiful. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you. Haribol.